Nancy's Story World. Title: Esosa and the White Stranger in the Fruit Farm. The day a white stranger entered Yugo village to build a bridge, a battle began. Love against power, heart against crown. The village never remained the same. A story never forgotten. Daniel arrived in Yugo as the sun began to rise, spreading soft orange colors on the red earth. He was a tall, lean young man in his early 30s, with sun-kissed hair, soft blue eyes, and a heart eager for more than concrete and steel. Sent from Europe by an international engineering firm to oversee the construction of a much-needed bridge across the Omodion River, Daniel came expecting dust, deadlines, and a hard mattress. He hadn't anticipated the magic of Yugo. The village welcomed him with wary curiosity. His presence stirred whispers, some cautious, others excited. A white man had never stayed this long in Yugo before. The village chief, Okeghill, offered him a modest bungalow near the river. It stood beside a cluster of palm trees, and on most mornings, roosters announced the dawn louder than the alarm on Daniel's imported wristwatch. Adjusting to life in Yugo was not easy. The power went off at all times. The mosquitoes waged war at night, and the food, though fresh and flavorful, sent his stomach into rebellion in his first week. He burned his fingers trying to eat pounded yam with egusi soup and got lost on the winding footpaths more than once. Children ran away from him at first, giggling and shouting Oimbo, before hiding behind their mothers. Still, Daniel endured. He began to understand that Yugo was a rhythm, and he needed to learn the beat. He had barely spent a week mapping out the bridge's foundation when he wandered into the eastern part of the village, drawn by the scent of ripening guavas. There, beneath the towering orange trees, a young woman knelt beside woven baskets of mangoes and oranges, wiping sweat off her dark, glistening brow with the back of her arm. Her name was Esosa. Her name meant God's gift, and that, Daniel would come to realize, was exactly what she was. She noticed him before he spoke, smiling gently as he approached. Her skin was deep bronze, her eyes sharp with curiosity, and her laughter bubbled like a hidden stream. "Do you want some fruit, Oimbo?" she teased playfully, wiping her hands on her wrapper. Daniel laughed, slightly embarrassed. "Yes, I do, but I don't know the names of half of these." Esosa giggled and picked up a mango. "This one is mango. That is agbolumo. And this," she plucked an orange, "is what I give you for free. Welcome to Yugo." That was the first of many conversations. At first, it was just about fruits and trees, rivers and soil. Esosa told stories of her mother's fruit farm, how she learned to tell ripe bananas by their scent and not their color. Daniel told her about cold cities with silent mornings and busy streets, about bridges that spanned frozen rivers. They met often, always by the fruit farm, where Esosa's mother, Mama Osahon, would eye them quietly but say nothing. Daniel began to look forward to those visits, not only for the warmth of Esosa's presence but for the lessons she taught him in patience, in simplicity, in listening. He helped her water the trees, carried baskets of fruit to the roadside for sale, and learned to greet elders with respect. In time, friendship blossomed into something else. Daniel found excuses to visit the fruit farm every evening. Esosa began to wear brighter wrappers and adorn her hair with fresh hibiscus. He brought her books about the world beyond Yugo. She taught him to speak simple Edo phrases. He would smile and fumble, and she would laugh at him with a tenderness that felt dangerously close to love. One evening, under the moonlight, he took her hand and whispered, "You make Yugo feel like home." But Yugo was her dears. Princess Adesuwa, daughter of the revered Oba of Yugo, was no ordinary maiden. She had studied in England, could quote Shakespeare and dance to Afrobeats in the same breath. Her beauty was unmatched, tall, regal, with eyes like burning coal and lips shaped like secrets. She had returned to Yugo just 2 weeks after Daniel's arrival, and it didn't take long for her to notice the white stranger with dirt-stained boots and a kind smile. Adesuwa saw Daniel not only as an outsider but as an opportunity, something new, something rare. At the village festival held to celebrate the yam harvest, she was the center of attention. Dressed in coral beads and a flowing wrapper of gold and green, she danced to the beat of the talking drum, her hips swaying like flame. Daniel watched from the edge of the gathering, awed, but his eyes drifted to Esosa, who stood in a simple white wrapper, smiling shyly beneath a mango tree. Adesuwa noticed. Later that evening, she invited Daniel to her father's palace under the pretense of discussing the bridge project. Wine was poured, stories shared, and Adesuwa laugh echoed through the marbled corridor like music. She leaned in close and asked about his home, his family, his dreams. Her hand brushed his arm more than once. Daniel, polite but distracted, answered with half his heart. The other half was somewhere in the fruit farm. The next morning, Adesuwa sent a basket of imported wine to Esosa's fruit stand. A maid delivered it with a note, "You offer fruit. I offer royalty." Esosa said nothing but her hands trembled as she sorted guavas. A week later, Adesuwa showed up at the fruit farm herself, her dress embroidered with shining beads. "You must be Esosa," she said, smiling with a tilt of superiority. "You give him fruit. I give him a future." Esosa stood still, the wind catching the hem of her wrapper. "He is free to choose. And he will choose well," Adesuwa replied, then walked away, her feet silent against the red soil. As days passed, Adesuwa made her presence felt. She invited Daniel to dinners, sent him fine clothes, even brought engineers from Benin City to assist his work. Esosa said nothing, but inside she battled fear. Would love be enough? Daniel was stunned when he heard. The Oba had summoned him and congratulated him on his future union with the princess. Gifts were already being prepared. The project was ahead of schedule. Everything was aligning. Except his heart. He found Esosa that evening by the river, her eyes red and swollen. She did not greet him. "You never said you were a prince," she muttered bitterly. "I'm not. But you're promised now, to the daughter of a king." "I didn't agree to anything. But you didn't say no either." Silence. Then Daniel took a step closer. "I came to Yugo to build a bridge. And I did. But not just over a river. You built a bridge in me, Esosa. A bridge to something I didn't know I was missing." Her tears fell then, freely, the river beside them echoing her pain. "I don't want to be your second choice, Daniel." "You're not," he whispered. "You were always the first. The only." But forces bigger than love moved in Yugo. The Oba, enraged by Daniel's defiance, threatened to cancel the project. Elders warned Daniel that marrying a village girl without royal approval would dishonor their traditions. Even Mama Osahon, once silently supportive, began to withdraw. Adesuwa, undeterred, began holding public feasts, to which Daniel was always invited, and Esosa was pointedly excluded. She wanted everyone to see that she, not Esosa, stood beside the white man. Esosa stayed away, believing that perhaps love was not strong enough to withstand culture and power. She cried often at the riverbank where they used to talk. Her strength, once unshakable, began to wilt. One morning, just before the bridge's final arch was placed, Daniel disappeared. Rumors spread he had returned to his country. Others said he left with Adesuwa. Esosa fell ill with heartbreak, her laughter fading like dry leaves in harmattan. Weeks passed. The bridge was completed, but the celebration was muted. Then, on the first market day of the new moon, a white man walked into the fruit farm with a ring made of bronze and coral. He knelt before Esosa, as the villagers gathered in shock. "I left not to run away," he said, "but to speak with my people, to resign from the company, and to return as a man, not just a worker under contract." But the Oba, "I went to him too. I told him I would honor his customs if he allowed me to marry the woman who taught me the meaning of life." Esosa trembled, her eyes wide. "And he agreed. He said only a man who would give up a princess for love must have found a queen in disguise." Tears and laughter met in Esosa's throat. She fell into his arms. A year later, under a canopy of mango trees and beside the bridge he built, Daniel and Esosa were wed in a vibrant, colorful ceremony. The whole village danced, and even Princess Adesuwa smiled from a distance, regal as ever, her heart quietly healing. And so, in the village of Yugo, a bridge connected not just two lands, but two hearts, two cultures, and two destinies forever changed by fruit, by faith, and by the quiet power of love. After the wedding, Daniel and Esosa stayed in Yugo for a few more months. Daniel helped train local builders and handed over the final bridge report to the elders. Esosa continued working with her mother on the fruit farm, and together, they started a small cooperative to help village women sell their produce more profitably. But one bright morning, with blessings from the Oba and gifts from villagers stuffed into raffia baskets, Daniel and Esosa boarded a small vehicle that would take them to Benin City, where they would catch a flight to Europe. The entire village lined the road, some waving, others crying, all smiling. Esosa turned back one last time to see the red earth of Yugo stretch behind her, the fruit farm glistening in the morning sun, and the bridge, a monument of their love, standing tall across the Omodion River. They didn't live forever, though. Every year, during the Yam Festival, they would return. And each time they did, the village children would gather to hear the story of the white man and the fruit girl who fell in love and built a bridge, not just for the village, but for the generations that followed.